Good morning. I'm Sean Walton. I represent the family of Takaya Young, and I'm here today with Takaya's grandmother, Miss Nadine Young. And thank you all for being here. Today marks a solemn victory in the pursuit of justice for Takaya Young and her unborn daughter, whose lives were tragically and unjustly taken at the hands of Blendon Township police officer Connor Grubb. Grubb now faces 4 counts of murder, 4 counts of felonious assault, and 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter. On August 1st, Takaya and her family would have been celebrating Takaya's 22nd birthday. We honor Takaya and her unborn daughter, not as footnotes here, but as victims of an unjust crime and as the true beneficiaries of the right to utilize Marsy's Law alongside her unborn daughter. This indictment speaks to the resilience and persistence of those who demand accountability when gross misuses of power occur. Contrastingly, Connor Grubb and his partner were not victims. To use Marsy's Law to cloak officers from facing the consequences of their actions is an insult to every victim of police violence, an inversion of justice, and moral accountability. The road to this point has been long. Yet we can assert that although this journey has been a very tough one, the right conclusion was reached by the grand jury. The actions that led to the death of Takaya, the unnecessary aggression, the chilling commands that amounted to comply or die, were there for us all to witness in dreadful clarity. Takaya's life and that of her daughter were extinguished in an act of brutality, becoming yet another symbol of the urgent need for reform in police conduct and accountability. In the aftermath of the murder, a statement from Fraternal Order of Police, Capital City Lodge Number 9, President Brian Steele, that he could see how the shooting could be justified, underscores a cowardly, yet consistent, readiness to excuse the inexcusable. His insistence on saying the loud part silently, that he actually could see how the shooting could be viewed as a murder, proved yet again that he possesses neither the courage nor the credibility to speak for the countless officers in this city that set out each and every day to do the right thing. He and others like him oppose systems of oppression while holding back the good officers who also seek systemic change for our communities. The grand jury's decision, fortunately, reflects the community's collective conscience, recognizing this tragedy for what it is, a murder that demands empathy and justice. As we stand with Takaya's family, we cannot overstate the bitter irony that Officer Connor Grubb is now the 4th member of Capital City Lodge Number 9 to be currently awaiting trial for murder. If the FOP and Steele will not stand as authentic and reliable allies for truth and justice, then this indictment serves as a clarion call that the voices of the people will still be heard and respected. We find strength in a unified demand for accountability, transparency, and true justice. And we will continue to fight for a society where such travesties are relics of the past and not recurring nightmares narrated by uncertified boogeymen such as Steele. The quest for change is arduous, the path fraught with resistance, but it is through our collective fortitude that change is achieved. We stand fully committed to this journey alongside the community that we serve, always striving toward a more just and equitable world for all. We thank the grand jury, but we insist that this is but a step, not the conclusion, of our collective journey towards justice for Takaya and her unborn daughter. And at this point, I will open up the floor for questions for both myself and Ms. Nadine Young.
Ms. Nadine, can you describe what this last almost year has been like for you and your family?
It's been, for me, agony. It's been like a whirlwind of just hurt and pain. And I'm raising her 2 little boys, and it's like I see her in them, and I helped raise her most of her life. So it's like it hurts me because she was the first girl I got to raise. I had 5 sons. So she was the first girl I got to raise and first, like, had close to a daughter that I could have had. And she was taken away at the age of 21. And it just was like this turmoil and just pain and hurt a lot. and I just wanted to see some justice served. I wanted to see Connor Grubb pay for what he did, because it was wrong. It was wrong for him to take her and her baby out of here like he did. And I seen it on his body cam video. When I seen it and she said her last words, "Are you going to shoot me?" That tore me all the way up. And I could not keep that. That just kept playing over and over in my head. And I knew he was wrong when he did that. So yeah, it played my whole last year. This whole year has been like turmoil for me.
Miss Nadine,
Do you have a message that you want to share to him?
I just want him to know he was wrong to kill her. It didn't take that. He didn't never have to pull that gun on her, ever. It wasn't called for. He was a bully with a badge, and that was not right.
Miss Nadine, I know that Takaya's birthday was recently, and I remember last time we talked, the family seems to have a stretch of birthdays all kind of around each other.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just wondering what the last few weeks have been like for you and for her children.
Her baby, her little youngest son's birthday was the 29th of July. Hers was the 1st of August. Her next son is the 18th of August. Then mine's the 19th. My son was yesterday. So it's like we all celebrated together. We're not together because of Connor Grubb. August was our whole month. We're all Leos. You know what I'm saying? And that was traumatic to not have her with us. You know what I'm saying? It just tore us all up. Because she's like the life of everything. You know what I'm saying? She was the smile. She was the life of the party. And she did all she could for her babies. You know what I'm saying? He took a lot from us, period. From her babies and from us.
Some of these charges are specifically for Takaya's unborn baby.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that was right in the indictment?
Yes, because she wanted that baby girl so bad. She had 2 boys. And she was buying stuff. She had so much stuff in my garage for that little girl. And I didn't even know it until after she passed, and I opened my garage and seen it. All the stuff she had already purchased for that baby. She was getting ready for her because she was happy to have a little girl. And when I seen all the pink this and the pink that, and I'm like, oh, she's ready. It's like, she can't have her now because they took her and the baby.
What does justice in this case mean for the family?
I would like to see, hopefully go to court soon and him get a long sentence for taking her life and her baby's life. I mean, because it's not fair. We don't have her or the baby, and he was running around a whole year paid administrative leave. Double murder? Come on now. That doesn't make sense.
What do you think Blendon Township should do for their internal investigation? What results do you want to see there?
Their internal investigation. You can answer that.
I think we're seeing here is a systemic issue where we have an officer who is now indicted for murder. Let's first talk about the fact that Blendon Township rushed to call Connor Grubb and his partner victims. I think that it villainizes people in a way that is cruel. We saw from the video that Takaya was a victim here, and so to use just the narrative that they could invoke Marcy's law, I think that shows that there are already fallacies in any internal investigation, because from the beginning, before there was any investigation, they had no problem indicating that from their belief, despite what all of our eyes saw, and there was some way that Connor Grubb was a victim. So I think that he should be terminated immediately. I think there should not be any internal investigation. I think to the point that there is an internal investigation, that speaks to systemic issues within Blendon Township. And I think that's where, we're looking at investigating Blendon Township from a civil standpoint, looking at what practices led to this incident occurring. We know that Connor Grubb, he's someone who, based on our investigation, has had some issues in the past with aggression. We believe that he saw time in combat. And, I think officers deserve better than whatever culture is being created over at Blendon Township and other police departments. So he should be terminated. There shouldn't be any internal investigation aside from looking at their own practices and policies and seeing how to make sure that this does not happen again in the future.
Sean, we talked months ago about kind of that crucial moment of and the car starts moving, and Connor Grubb's right there, and his feet come off the ground, and he fires a fatal shot. That's where the branch in the road seems to go about how people are characterized. The police are saying, see, she was moving toward him, she was assaulting him with her vehicle, which justified the use of force response. You see it a different way, I think. Could you just elaborate on that? Not to get too far in the weeds, but
Yeah, for
that
sure.
does seem to be the key point in the whole incident.
Yeah,
A key point.
Absolutely, and I think what is important to remember is that it's not just how I see it, it's how a grand jury saw it, it's how the prosecutors who presented it. I assume that based on the evidence they presented, they felt that there was evidence to indicate that a murder occurred here. And, as we backtrack, let's talk about the fact that Connor Grubb pulled his gun out to begin with, because when he pulled that gun out, when I say comply or die, that's what that looks like. He pulled his gun out and he said, get out the car.
No, that ain't what he said. He said, get the F out the car.
He said, get the
3
F out the
times.
car to
And
her.
she turned her car to the right, and he jumped in front of that car, jumped on the car, and shot her. Watch the video. I watched it, and I read it. I watched it, and it sunk in my head. And then she said, are you going to shoot me? And he got in front of that car, and he shot her. Period. That's how he did her. He did her dirty. Because she didn't get out the car. When he said get the F out the car 3 times, she didn't get the F out the car, and then he shot my granddaughter. Period. That's what he did.
And so to that point,
Aggressive.
And so to that point, when he pulled the gun out, at that point, he showed an indication that he was planning to shoot her if she did not follow his commands. His commands were to get out of the vehicle. That's not proper policing in America. It does not respect the constitutional rights of Americans in this country, and it's not what any officer who is reasonable would do in those circumstances. So, when we look at the split seconds of the car barely moving and his feet leaving the ground, I think that is where the trial will play out. The trial will play out, and we'll get some answers as to legally how the prosecution feels about that. But what I will say is that those split seconds are how officers tend to get away with murder, is to get us caught up in that narrow split-second decision, and even saying that he had no choice. He did have a choice. He should have never pulled the gun out to begin with. He should have not stepped into the path of the vehicle. When he saw that Takaya was scared, asking if he was going to shoot her, cops are trained to communicate with people and to de-escalate situations. Everything he did escalated that situation, and that's why Takaya was murdered. It's not because she did anything to warrant that murder. And I think as we split hairs over those seconds, I think that is where we lose the broader conversation that the gun should have never come out to begin with. And he should have taken so many other steps to prevent this, and that is the conversation. So, I think that these charges are warranted. I have my thoughts on those split seconds, and I think even within those split seconds, it's still very warranted. But aside from that, it should have never happened to begin with.
Why was what? Again, she's not around to ask. Why do either of you think she was moving the car? She's let the car move.
She was scared of him and that gun. He pulled the gun on her and put it in her face, and that made her scared. She was scared of him and that gun. He pulled the gun on her, told her to get the F out the car, and she turned around and said somebody else was in the store, it wasn't me. And he told her 2 more times to get the F out the car. And she said, are you going to shoot me? And she cruised real slow in that car, turned to the right, away from him, and then he still jumped in front of the car, jumped on the car, and shot her.
And so it's hard to say exactly what she intended to do, but you look at the actions there. Before the car ever moved, she turned all the way away from Connor Grubb, and her intent was not to hit him or hurt him. And if you look at the video, he actually moves back in front of the car as she turns it away. He takes a step back towards the center to recenter himself. So, again, when the gun came out, what was his intent? And if it was not to shoot her, then what was it? And if his intent was that he may have to shoot her, for what purpose was it? I mean, the car wasn't moving at the point when the gun came out. And again, I think that's why we're here, is that he did not follow proper policing procedures. I think just from a cultural competency standpoint, it is understandable that if a gun is pointed at you and you are in fight or flight mode that you may attempt to flee. You know, not sure if any of us have been in that situation before. I can't say that I have, but I'm not sure what I would do in that situation. I would think that I would hopefully do the right thing, but you know, I'm a 38-year-old attorney that is well versed in these things from a cultural competency. From a cultural competency standpoint, Connor Grubb should have known better, and dealing with any community and bringing that level of aggression and escalation.
Sean, you mentioned that this isn't the first time we've seen an officer be aggressive towards somebody in this community. Do you think that this stems from training that the officers here in this area are getting?
I think it's a bit of a bully mentality, you know, and I think that is what is frustrating, is that, you know, I have many officers that I've represented, you know, who, you know, we talk about just the culture of policing and how they want to do the right thing, that, you know, it's about building relationships and, you know, de-escalating and solving issues in a way that doesn't lead to arrest and just unnecessary encounters. And so I think that there's a mentality where you can shoot first and ask questions later. And, you know, historically they've gotten away with it. And I think what we see here now is a trend where, again, as I said, there are now four, I'll stress four Central Ohio police officers who are awaiting trial for murder. And I think that what we're seeing is a changing of the climate where we can actually see accountability. And I think that the hope is that the culture changes. But yeah, I think historically there's just been a lot of excuses made. You know, let's just be, you know, let's speak plainly. You know, when we have folks like Brian Steele and other representatives of the FOP being completely unwilling to even raise questions about these incidents, it shows that they band together. You know, but at the same time, as those select few, because I don't, you know, again, I want to highlight that when Brian Steele speaks, I don't know that he's speaking for all officers. And, you know, I think we have to take that power away from him in that sense, because when we give credibility to those who have not been credible, you know, then it hurts everybody. And so I think it's important to always be willing to respect all points of view and all possible scenarios. And I think that's what we see as a lack of any willingness to say, you know what, we have questions here too. Why did this happen? You know, how can we be better? We never hear that, right? And so, yeah, that culture is changing, and it's our intent that through these charges and other resolutions where families are made whole and communities see that we can actually have change, that, you know, the culture will change.
When do you think that'll be?
You know, man, after after all of these, right, I mean, you know, you would hope that with these charges right here, that every officer will be on notice that that is a situation where, you know, it's a line drawn in the sand clearly that is not acceptable. And beyond that, when you have similar situations, what can you do to de-escalate? So the hope is that this never happens again.
Thank you, Jesus.
What policies should Blendon Township have changed in the past year?
You know, I think we can start with the fact that he should have been terminated. You know, you look at the Blendon Township policy themselves, it says that an officer should not put themselves in front of a moving vehicle. That vehicle wasn't moving. That also doesn't even, you know, again, touch on the fact that the gun shouldn't have come out in that situation. There was no reason to draw his weapon in that scenario. And so I think that as we look at or less lethal responses, you know, we can look at more taser usage, you know, de-escalation. Just, we should not have an officer pulling his gun in that scenario. You know, I mean, it's a petty theft accusation, and the gun should have never come out. So I think that is where we start, is just what culture is there that allows for an escalation of that magnitude for an accusation, you know, that is so minor.
To lose your life.
Right.
You lose your life.
Well,
Because somebody said you stole something. And you're going to kill somebody. 2 people.
And this grand jury made a historic choice of, if they're anonymous, what would you say to them if you could say something to the people in that grand jury?
Me?
The
Thank you, Jesus. I thank God, because I had been prayer warriors calling me, praying with me, talking to me. I'm like, I need some help to get some peace, because I need something done about this. I need justice. And the justice of God came on through. That's all I can say. God did it. God did it. He made this come through.
Nadine, do her boys ever ask about their mom? And
All
what
the
do they ask
time.
about?
They miss her. They miss her, but all we can do is love on them as much as we can and show them as much love, especially now because their birthdays, she showed out for their birthdays. You know what I'm saying? Now I got Kobe's 127, his birthday's coming up on the 18th. I can't do as much as she did, but I'm gonna do the best I can. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, my mom did me this, she did this and this and this. I'm gonna do what I can do, the best I can do as a granny. You know what I'm saying? But I can't be mama, but I'm gonna do what I can. But they miss her. They really miss her.
How old's the other boy?
He turned 4 on the 29th of July. Yeah, and we did what we could for his birthday, and he was happy as the Lord.
Are you, Nadine, would you mind stepping closer to the mic and start this?
I'm sorry.
Are you planning on going to the court proceedings? We have an arraignment scheduled for tomorrow. I don't know if we'll be there in person or video. Are you planning to attend these?
I want to attend the court when they take him to court for this murder, double murder, and all them charges. I want to go to court for that, but I might not be there tomorrow because I got family stuff going on.
Do you, can you look him in the eye, or will you plan on
Oh
looking him in
yes,
the
I
eye?
want to. I want him to see my eyes and see my heart and see what I feel and see if he even got a heart. Yes, sir.
Do you think, this is perhaps a stupid question to ask this early in the process, do you think you can ever forgive him?
It'll take Jesus to help me with that one. I love the Lord and I'm a Jesus girl, but it'll take a minute if that happened. But it'll take Jesus for that. But right now, not right now.
Sean, you mentioned
It hurt
that-
too bad right now. I mean, it hurting till in the morning. It hurting. I've never really grieved properly because of waiting for this to happen, for him to go down, for her tearing us up like he did. So, you know what I'm saying? I've still got some grieving to do in mourning and stuff for her.
What, was it an added burden that the fact that they used the ball, perhaps improperly, perhaps not, to keep his name secret?
Yeah, that added me. That tore me up. I couldn't believe that martial law was on his name, and she was the victim. Her, that wasn't right. Not at all. To me.
Sean, you mentioned that there are still 4 pending trials for officers or deputies here in Franklin County. You're representing some of those, and these are notoriously known to take a long time to process. How hard is it on these families who are dealing with this trial process?
I wish that the world could truly see their day to day. I mean, you're thinking about the news cycle, and how we hear about it in the news. And, I've seen some responses already that, folks were wondering what was going to happen with it. I mean, they wonder and they think about it every second of every day. And it is a process that I would say absolutely needs to speed up in some way. On one hand, we want to get it right. But, even aside from Takaya's family, we've had other families where the murders occurred in 2020, 2021, and here we are 2024, going into 2025, and they're still waiting. And I think, when we look at the justice system for everyday citizens versus police officers, I understand why there is a need to be a bit more meticulous in trying to convict those officers, but at the same time, what we saw in the video that happened here with Takaya, nothing changed between August 24th of last year and today. I'm glad they got it right, but the families deserve closure so much sooner. You asked about Takaya's sons, and yeah, her sons have been at the monthly vigils, calling for justice for their mother, and it's important to let them know that yes, somebody did something bad to your mommy, but they're going to be held responsible for it. At a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old, at that basic level of humanity, I think that is what is important that we remember, is that we're all humans and we all deserve the same treatment under the laws in this country and the same process. And so that process, we talk about swift justice and resolution for any victim of crime. I mean, it should not be any different for police victims of crime. So I think, again, that's changing as we normalize the fact that bad actors are held accountable no matter who they are, or what color they wear. You know, people in uniform can do bad things, and I think it's important that we normalize that in a way that allows us to move through this process faster for everybody.
Sean, were you contacted at all by BCI or the Montgomery County Prosecutor's Office during this investigation?
Updated, contacted in a way where the family wasn't just waiting indefinitely to hear and wondering if it would happen at all. We knew at some point this would go to the grand jury. We didn't know when. We've been updated, throughout to the extent that they can update us. I think, having gone through this a couple times now, it's important that we do have that line of separation, where I represent the family on that side, but I'm not the criminal, I'm not the prosecutor. And so, we've been in communication, but, just to the extent to make sure the family is understanding the process.
And just basically because they're the victims here. I mean, they didn't seek any evidence or anything like that from you or from the family.
Nope. Yeah, no involvement with the investigation, aside from our own independent investigation. We released the name of Connor Grubb because it was concealed, and we felt like it was important. And again, I think it's just really critical that as we're looking at these matters of public importance, that we remember that these officers who have sworn an allegiance to the public, they should not be allowed to hide in secrecy, because in finding out Connor Grubb's name, we also found out a lot of information about him, that will come out at some point in the future. But this was foreseeable and preventable in a way, and other people in the community have had stories about Connor Grubb. They were very eager to tell those stories once they knew his name.
Could you elaborate a little on that? I mean, that's
kind
of a tantalizing little hint.
I think what we see often is that officers sometimes have a history of complaints against them, aggressive behavior, aggressive language, things that show a pattern that would lead to a situation where in a Kroger parking lot and responding to a petty theft accusation, he pulls a gun out. I think that's just what I would say, as an attorney who looks at these things, you see a pattern of behavior that is indicative of future issues. I think every department should have an early warning system. I'm not sure if Blendon Township did. We'll look into that. But, when you have a level of complaint, I think even if it is unfounded, you should still have a level of additional training, retraining, and assurance that what could be a red flag or what could be smoke does not turn into a fire, as we see here.
Yeah. And civil litigation coming out of this?
In the same way that the criminal process should not take a long time for these people, I think that we are fully ready to litigate this and to go to a civil trial. That process takes years. I would hope that Blendon Township sees the writing on the wall, essentially. I think that this is very clear cut. And so, we're prepared to litigate it if need be, but at the same time, Takaya has two sons who should not have to go through this process, a family that should not have to go through this process. And, you asked the question earlier about what families deal with. We have depositions, we have, discovery, all these things that they didn't ask to be involved with. So we're here to fight for them as needed, but I would hope that we could talk to Blendon Township about, doing what's right for the family and for the community and not having to actually litigate this in the same way.
Let me ask what maybe, I'm sorry, if anyone else.
Thank you. I think I'm gonna take off.
Um,
Sorry for your loss.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
This may be a tough question, and I apologize if it's offensive to you, but there may be not that it justifies the shooting, the killing, whatever, but does Takia bear part of the blame?
It's Takaya.
I'm sorry, I really apologize. Takaya bear any of the blame because she did shoplift some liquor from that Kroger?
No, sir, because for the simple fact that whatever that she's supposed to got, she left it in the store. She didn't even bring it out the store, and there was a witness to say she left it inside the store.
So what I'll say to that is,
She didn't take nothing out the store.
and what I'll say is that early on in the process, we gave far too much weight to that question. And in the aftermath, I regretted all of the answers I provided to that question because in no scenario does somebody shoplifting contribute at all to their murder by a police officer who was investigating and asking questions about that. And so, yeah, we had a lot of conversation about whether she did it, whether she didn't do it. I personally don't care. She'll never see court on that potential charge. Had she seen court on that potential charge, it might have been a ticket. It wouldn't have been jail time. I mean, it's petty theft, right? So ultimately, the law is very clear on when you can use deadly force as a police officer, and in no scenario was that shoplifting accusation something that would have led to that. There was no indication that she had a weapon. He didn't see a weapon, and there was no reason to pull the gun out. So, no, she bears 110%. She bears no responsibility. I say that with full confidence, and I think it's important that we don't normalize that conversation around does somebody shoplifting deserve to be killed. And I think that's my regret from the conversation a year ago, and I've been waiting to make sure that it doesn't happen again. That we do not focus on that shoplifting because, as we see, it doesn't matter now. And I think a jury will hear the facts of what happened, and it'll be based on what happened in the parking lot, and it has nothing to do with what happened inside the Kroger that day.
Michelle, police officers will say a car is a deadly weapon.
Mm-hmm.
This officer was off of his feet.
Mm-hmm.
He did fear for his life, potentially.
Mm-hmm.
This is why he used the force that he used.
Mm-hmm.
How do you counter that?
That argument might carry more weight if the gun came out after all that you just said, but the gun came out before that. And so my question is, why did he pull it out, and what was his intent? Had the car never moved, was he going to just point the gun at her indefinitely until she got out the car?
And when he was off of his feet, he leaned on that car, and that's when he shot her. He did that. He got off his feet when he shot my granddaughter in her face. In her heart, because he shot her through the heart and went through her spine. I read the autopsy report. He got off his own feet because he jumped in front of that car 2 times. He never should have jumped in front of her car. He put himself in harm's way. He shot her in the heart and killed her. He did that. He put himself like that.
Yeah, and
she didn't use it as a weapon. He put himself in front of the car.
and I think that there are scenarios where a car can be a deadly weapon. Absolutely, this was not one of those scenarios. And I think, again, every reasonable officer that I've heard from on the topic agrees. And I think that is what is important, is that as we figure out what good policing is, it's important that we make it clear that that is not good policing. It's not what is acceptable in our communities, and it's not what we're going to tolerate. And that's why we have murder charges here today.
Can I ask you the prosecutor's question? Why 4 charges? 4 counts of murder? There were just 2 deaths here, counting an unborn child.
Yeah, that's a question that is more for the prosecutors.
All right.
But what I'll say about what I know is that based on the elements of those charges, all charges are warranted. All the facts that warrant convictions on those charges are present here. And so, however we get those convictions, we want those convictions. And, that's a strategy that they'll have to speak to more. So.
Nadine, do you have anything else that you would like to add?
I just want to finish getting some justice for my granddaughter. I'm just glad he's indicted. I thank God for that. I really do. I've been waiting almost a whole year for this.
Do you want Connor Grubb to go to prison for the rest of his life?
Yeah, she don't got no life, and her baby don't got no life. So yeah, that would be justice for me and our family and her boys. Cause they can't have their mommy back. They can't have their sister back. You need 2 life terms.
And I think it's deterrence. That's why we have the criminal justice system, is to deter future bad actors. And I think a conviction of Connor Grubb, a conviction of Jason Meade, of Ricky Anderson, of Adam Coy, those convictions will hopefully protect lives and save lives in the future. And that is what the justice system is meant to be about, is deterring other bad actors. And, I think a life sentence is what anyone else would be facing, and I think it's what Connor Grubb deserves here. All right, any more questions? All right, well, we appreciate you all coming out, and if you do have any follow-up, feel free to reach out. Justice for Takaya, and we want to make sure that we thank the community for their support throughout this time and for your coverage of this matter. Thank you.
Y'all. I appreciate it.
Thank you.